promised that then I would go through and actually show you some of the security tools that I'm using. So one of the things that I showed you was actually a Raspberry Pi that's behind me, sitting behind my switch, that was actually doing Stealthwatch Cloud. So what it's doing is actually receiving a span port directly from my switch, my core switch in the home office, and from there I'm spanning all my traffic there, and it's creating data that it's then sending back to Stealthwatch Cloud. Now, if I had switches that were doing NetFlow, I could just pass the NetFlow directly to Stealthwatch Cloud. But in this case, I actually do need a sensor to do so. So, um, by the way, these videos by no means are meant to be a complete demo or a serious technical deep dive. They're just kind of to show you what a home lab looks like for someone in my position and some of the things that you can maybe get from the tool. So if there's something that you see that you're interested in, reach out to me directly, and we'll set up some time to go one-on-one and actually let you talk to even some of the smarter people that are kind of behind the curtains than me that specialize just in the individual tools that we're going to look at. So this is Stealthwatch Cloud. Now, typically how we would look at Stealthwatch Cloud is it's very good, especially for integration into cloud services. So Amazon Web Services, Azure, Google Cloud, all those sorts of things. In this case, what I'm using it for is I'm just trying to get some analytics and some security information and alerts that might come from my network. So it's looking at that network traffic, and it's looking for any anomalies, and then it's letting me know what those anomalies are so I can use some of my control points to actually stop those. And we'll be going through some of those control points in subsequent videos, and I hope to release one of these about every day. So the first thing is just to talk about the setup here. These are the instructions that I used, and I will definitely link to these in the description. But this is just a little bit. You download the Stealthwatch image, and you load it on the Raspberry Pi. You definitely change your default password. And once you've loaded it on, I mean, it's really simple. You span traffic to it. I had an issue with the Raspberry Pi. I'm trying to recall exactly what it was. Oh, the network order was actually swapped. So I had to go in. I don't remember exactly how I did it because I did it about 2 months ago. But you actually had to change so that the Ethernet card and the wireless interface were basically in the right order. So there is a way to do that. It may have actually been fixed in subsequent images, so you may not even have to worry about that. But this is essentially what this looks like. This is what I built in the area here. I think I'm on a Raspberry 3 is what I believe is running there. So you don't need to necessarily have the latest and greatest Raspberry, although I do have the latest and greatest Raspberry Pi back there, the 4, and it makes a pretty significant difference, especially with the increase in RAM that they put in that. I believe I have the 4 gig model back there, so it makes a big difference. But anyway, let's go to Stealthwatch Cloud for a second. Let's take a look at what we got here. So from a very high level, I mean, you can notice you see some endpoint trends that are going on here. These are endpoints that are actually connecting and moving traffic throughout the network. I tend to have a fairly large home network. My wife and I decided that we were going to go all in on the smart home and the Nest cameras and all of those sorts of things. So a lot of these devices are IoT style devices, and I've got some segmentation built in for them, but we can see them because this is the core switch, so I can see them passing through all the different VLANs. So this is kind of nice. And then of course I see aggregate traffic here as well. Now, obviously this is taking snapshots at different times. So this is, like most network traffic tools, it's not going to show absolutely every piece of traffic that's passed through here, but it's directionally good. I mean, if you look at it, you can see the trends. Now, one thing I have noticed that I have to actually get with support and fix is this specific graph that you're looking at right here, this traffic graph that I'm kind of running my cursor around. This one, the time is actually off on it. So I do need to get the time resynced on this. The rest of the graphs seem to be just fine. So this is just, kind of a bug in the system that, who knows, probably I introduced that bug in the system. So we'll go through over here. You'll notice that if I had any alerts, they'd be shown here. I happen to not have any open alerts right now. And we'll go through and take a look at my network dashboard. All right. So the network dashboard is going to tell me a little bit more information, and I actually have kind of a story that I'll go into about this tool. So I was able to see using this tool, I was able to see that I was having some call outs to Chinese IP addresses. And so we'll talk later about Cisco threat response, but I actually used the information gathered from Stealthwatch Cloud to then do an investigation of Cisco threat response to figure out what those IPs were and then did, kind of some due diligence. And I'll actually go through that in a later video where I actually show you the casebook that I used for that. But it did start to show me, I mean, there's been some really interesting observations that have come out of here. Nothing that I would say is directly malicious, but there's, I mean, just some interesting things right off the bat. A lot of the customers that I speak to, I talk about this quite a bit, and that we have a lot of encrypted traffic that's out there. I've seen this vary on my home network pretty dramatically. In probably an enterprise network, you'd see the percentage of encrypted traffic would stay, I don't want to say static, but it'd probably stay a little bit more within some bounds. In my case, I've seen it as low as probably 50% and as high as 96%. So, this is kind of the median right here is 79%. And one thing that really drives it up is obviously if I'm connected into the VPN for the full time or the day, that's all encrypted traffic. It'll show that way. So I'm trying, because of the COVID-19 stuff going on right now, I'm trying not to stay persistently connected to our VPN and fill that up. Shows me some daily traffic, much of what I saw in the last graph. Shows me the number of devices, just kind of a different view in the other devices. And then it shows 7-day trends on top devices that are especially chatty. You'll notice we're watching a lot of TV at the house right now since we're all, locked in here. And then this is where I've given Stealthwatch Cloud a list of countries that I consider high risk. And so it looks for those countries, and if it sees any of those countries actually trying to transact. Now, what it doesn't show is, has this transaction been successful or not? That would actually require some integration that I don't have right now. You will notice, though, something when we go back up to the devices, those are names of devices. They aren't MAC addresses or IP addresses. And the way that I'm doing that is there's some integration between my Meraki stack and the Stealthwatch Cloud. So I'm actually getting real names that are being imported from my Meraki into here. So of course there's more correlation you can do there if I had Active Directory running, but now I'm just a little old lab in someone's house. So I'm not running Active Directory. You'll also notice one of the pieces of methodology that I've had about my lab, since I'm not a full-time engineer and certainly don't have the knowledge to be one, so is I'm not running a big server here. So all of the tools that I'm going to show you over the course of the next few days, if I can run them in a cloud environment, I'll run them in a cloud environment. So that's really the methodology you'll see here. So I've listed any countries that I have some alerts to. I can dig down on any one of these pieces of traffic and try to see what's going on. And of course, there's been just a ton of observations that have come from this network. Okay, so let's go into that geographic watch list. Take a look at some of those observations that are happening. All right, so I can see, for instance, my iPad Pro right here is reaching out to an external IP that is connected to China. Now, I happen to know, and I can validate these through both Cisco Threat Response and also by going into my firewall. I have geo IP blocks on my firewall. That's not perfect, but I could very easily take that IP from here and actually put it on a ban list. So if I decide that I don't want to have that IP, I can immediately, using Cisco Threat Response, I can put it on my firewall ban list. I can put it in my Ant for Endpoints ban list. I can put it in Umbrella's ban list. All of those just by simply using some of these observations that are here. So you can quite quickly see, I mean, there's different devices that are certainly reaching out to, in fact, I've got to do some investigation, it looks like, on a couple of these, but I'll kind of kill the surprise of the Cisco Threat Response demo and say, when I've done investigations on most of these, it's actually Amazon that it's reaching out to, and it has to do with how Amazon is doing something with their video on iOS. So Amazon Prime Video on iOS, for whatever reason, is reaching out to Amazon Cloud that exists in other countries, including, in this case, China. So let's take a look at something else. So if I had any alerts, those alerts would be listed here. So anything like suspected data exfiltration. I have had some observations where it has seen, let's see if we can find those. Yeah, like these ones right here. So persistent external server observation. This is going to be, you'll notice, for instance, my iPhone is reaching out pretty often to the WebEx server. Not terribly surprising for someone employed by Cisco. Heartbeat observations, look, these are pretty easy. These are right here. This is my Nest. Obviously, it's reaching out and doing heartbeats to the Nest service. This happens to be, this is my garage door opener right here. And then these are my Meraki devices, which do send out heartbeats. And part of the heartbeat is actually I have it doing ping tests against some of the network assets that sit outside this network. So external server observations, obviously things are, and then high throughput. So you'll notice that, most of my Apple devices, and especially the two TVs, are definitely reaching out to those often, and to outside IP addresses doing high throughput connections, which you would expect. It's video streaming. And then of course, here's the geographic watch list. So look, guys, I wanted to make these fairly brief. Didn't want to make these 40-minute overviews, but this is just a little of what I'm running in the lab. This is Stealthwatch Cloud. Again, Stealthwatch Cloud running off of a span, going to a Raspberry Pi, sending that data to Stealthwatch Cloud. That's the only infrastructure I have here to give me these types of observations into my home network. So I hope this was helpful, and we'll be coming at you with some more demos in the coming days. Thanks, everyone.